Alright, welcome back to the Bordo show. I'm Bordo and this is Ramble-Log, where we are here once again with our guest of the show and good friend Misha Shavelashvili, who helped us out in the last video with history. Yes.
Hello, Bordo.
Hello,
nice
hello.
to meet you again.
Nice to meet you.
Cheers.
Cheers, cheers. So, last time we talked a lot, but not enough. We want to talk more about this history, about this topic. But in the previous video, we focused around male and its history in Georgia and Caucasus through Persian and Roman influences. But our country has a long history of both armor and its productions.
Yeah, let's not forget that according to the ancient scribes and historians, the iron itself and the use of iron in the military purposes was first introduced to humanity until proven wrong, of course, in the Proto-Caucasian, Proto-Cartwelic tribes of Khalips who lived in the
according to
southeast shore of the Black Sea.
Yes, according to the Greek historians and some Assyrians as well.
And archaeological studies.
And a lot of archaeological studies. It's presumed that Khalibs, one of the ancient Kartvelian tribes, introduced iron making to the Eurasian world.
To the Middle Eastern, the Mediterranean region.
Yes. Because it's a really interesting fact that Black Sea coast of that region have black magnetic sand, or which contain a lot of high density metal, which can be easily taken out with not just a magnet, but a regular magnetically attracted metal, and can be forged and produced massively.
And since the forging of iron in that ages was not an easy thing, nearby people prefer to trade with Khalips until, of course, big states, big empires just conquered it and introduced iron to the worldwide forging. And I'm, of course, talking here mostly about Assyrian Empire.
Assyrians, Hittites before that.
Yeah, but Assyrians were the first iron empire in the world.
Yes, and also before the Iron Age was also Bronze Age, which laid the groundwork for Khalips to use metal.
For example, Colchetian bronze was pretty high level by high standards, even in the Hellenistic world.
Yes.
And let's not forget the myth of Argonauts.
Yes, which was actually theorized to be a myth of gaining knowledge of metalworking and medicine.
Even nowadays in Swaneti region, people use ram fur to wash out the small pieces of gold out of the rivers which are running from the mountains and contain them inside.
Yes.
And this is the origin of the Jason's journey's aim.
That's where the idea of golden fleece. It was actually golden because it contained tiny little beads of gold that came through the rivers from the depths of the Caucasus Mountains. Come back to our topic about armor in the Bronze Age. I'm planning to make future videos about Bronze Age style armor, and what can we talk about Bronze Age, where common warfare starts.
Yeah, talking about that period armor, of course we have that breastplates.
Yes,
made out of
the
bronze.
Circular shield-like breastplates,
which then evolved to these cuirasses already in the Greek times. We also can talk about the coats, which were covered with the small pieces of bronze or another scrap metal,
which evolved into different styles of armor.
For example, lamella,
scale armor,
or chainmail,
and ringular-shaped metal evolved into chainmail, and of course. Padded armor material,
which is interesting because in the different civilizations, in the different time periods, we have different kinds of that armor. For example, we had padded leather armors, which are most common and which
which probably came from Stone Age.
Yeah, but which were used up until the late medieval times.
Yes, in some cases even in the modern times. Yeah. Yes.
We have also that interesting cotton paper armor which Aztec Empire had in their use, which protected from the arrows, as the Hispanic historians and the people, the witnesses from that period said that it did its job pretty well. We also had that silk armor-like constructions in the China.
And the Chinese paper armor.
Yeah, of course.
Which I also talked about. And
fox armor from the fox material.
Flax,
not fox, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are probably fox leather armor, but...
flax armor was used in the antique, ancient, pre-Hellenistic times.
Yes.
As well as, and as long as the metal armors by the Egyptians, Hittites, Aramaic tribes.
Greeks used...
Even Greeks,
The famous... cuirasses, or what you would call, are multiple layers of glued flax,
and then bronze, or
some bronze pieces were added
copper.
To it. Yes.
And also, let's not forget about Greeks, that the modern day stereotype coming out of Zack Snyder's 300. I like that movie.
The muscular,
naked man. But in the Sparta, there was even a law, according to Plutarchus, that if a Spartan warrior took fight without an armor, he was considered outlaw because of this.
Yes.
So Leonidas in that movie and all his 300 men were outlaws from the Spartan law.
And also I would like to mention padded armor style of wool coats that was really popular. For example,
for Stone Age, which is supposed.
Yes, which we mentioned in our chainmail video, the nabadi, which is a large woolen coat that
with
cover your body, which was also seen with the Sumerians. They had really long dresses of multiple thick layers of wool, and something similar even has Mongolians and nomadic tribes had really thick coats of wool. Yes.
And
they're great against arrows.
Like Northern American National American people, like from the Alaska, Canada regions, they also wore such clothing for the battles.
Yes, it might not be great against slashing and piercing and bludgeoning weapons, but they're pretty great against arrows and
even against the early bullets.
Yes.
Like that round copper things which were put into the guns with powder.
Yes. That's why nabadi became really popular among Russian Cossacks and the Russian Imperial Army, because that thick coat that covered you also stopped early forms of fire muskets. And,
and also against such things that are clubs, like early form of maces, morning stars, which were not as deadly and sharp. Against the warhammers.
Yes, against a regular regular stick. One of the oldest and most powerful weapons, a big old stick. And stone, yes.
And also such big woolen hats.
Yes.
In Georgia you can find them, like papachi, for example, in the mountaineering.
And even the
svaneti hat.
They were meant to be padding underneath mail coifs and chashkani and other helmets. But later on it actually served pretty well as light armor.
Yeah, and it really helps if somebody hits you in the head. Because it's an amortization.
Yes. So in the future I have plans to make videos about Bronze Age armor, which I'm still trying to acquire metal for it. But I've already made a couple of leather and padded armors, and I also own a
gambezones, like the most popular example of padded armor.
And I'm thinking of how to make an interesting story out of it. So in the future, we will see a lot of this type of armor. So let's get back to mythology.
Yeah. And if we're talking about this topic, let's not forget to mention some similarities among our two mythologies, and the first of them is of course Amirani, who looks at the first looks similar to the Prometheus, because both were chained up to the Caucasus, but despite not unlike Prometheus, Amirani was more of a Heracles type of hero.
Yes. Well, there is going to be a dedicated video in the future about relationship of Colchian and ancient Kartvelian peoples with the Greeks, and
not only Greeks, I suppose.
Yes, of course, in the world, but Greeks are more popular to the Western audience. And one of the topics, of course, Argonautica, the Medea, Aeetes, and their whole family, that is really important part of the ancient Greek world. But one of the main things I would focus on in the future is the relationship between Prometheus and Amirani, because even our own historians and cultural figures to this day think that Amirani is just a Georgian name from Prometheus.
But that's not true, because these two myths contain like whole different level of storytelling of story itself. And talking forward, I personally think that maybe it happened vice versa. We had our cultural hero Amirani, who was a god fighter and destroyer of evil spirits and monsters.
Yes.
And later, under the Hellenistic influence, he got chained up to the mountain. This is what I think myself, because
that is a really difficult claim, but an interesting one.
The myths itself are so different. But on the other hand, in Amirani's history, there is one moment that we got the Christian time written legend.
Yes,
that's the sad fact. We don't know how it was in the pagan times.
One interesting fact about Georgian history: we are one of the first people to take on Christianity in
even before Roman Empire.
Even far before Roman
Empire. Not far, but
let's say that there are a lot of pre-recognition. There are Christian bases underground.
I mean like the state religion.
Yes, and it became during even the first century. There were a lot of influence of Jewish converts.
Yeah, we had a big Jewish community in Georgia then. At times.
Yes, our podcast is named the Ramble-Log, but
we are rambling.
We are rambling a lot here. Let's. Okay, so this topic. There was a large influx of Jews from the 6th century Exodus from the Babylon, and from this day 26th century 27 we're in 27th century of history of Georgians and Jews working together. My friend here is of Jewish descent. Yes, and we've been like good friends. One of the only people who hasn't been mean to the Jews, right?
Yeah.
Why is this even an accomplishment?
I'll mention one thing, that they were in the Russian imperial times.
Of course. Russian Empire was really against Jewish influence to this day.
And against Georgian, of course.
Yes, of course, Georgian. There was horrible pogroms in the Russian Empire, and there was another horrible exodus of Jewish Georgians during the Soviet times. And we really, as Georgians, really wish to mend this relationship. That wasn't, of course, our fault, but it still happened to us.
Well, and all the evil here comes from Russia.
Unfortunately, we had one really asshole guy that unfortunately shaped our whole history. Stalin.
Yeah. To mention that, Joseph Stalin is not Georgian. The dude himself said that he is not Georgian.
Yes. But we do not claim him.
Yeah, you can take it whoever you want. Yes, but there is one point about history that during the Stalin's time, let's go back to the topic. There was one period when he gave the illusion of the ethnic and national self-confidence to the small ethnoses like Georgians, for example, like Armenians, etc., etc.
But the
history in that time was kind of rewritten, so the nationalities could gain their own historical pride without it becoming too dangerous.
Yes.
And one part of that politics in Georgia was creating half mythological, I would say, run of events of history, which is sadly taught as an official history in schools, etc., even nowadays, long after Stalin's death.
Yes, one of the great battles us Georgian history fans and historians have to face is the overly mysticization and mythologization. It's a difficult word, of our own history, because Stalin kind of smartly but evilly
actually
weaponized,
smartly, because he hired really good historians to rewrite it, and these people, they were high professionals and they had their own history studies, but when Stalin says do something, you do something.
Yes.
Or other way you get shot.
A lot of ethnic tensions to this day
come from that era.
From Stalin's manipulation of ethno conflicts, especially around Caucasus. Most of the
Armenians, Azerbaijanis, Northern Caucasus, Abkhazia, and Samachablo in Georgia.
Yes.
Because it's an ancient Roman politics, divide and conquer.
Yes.
The more you separate the Soviet Republic, the less that Soviet Republic tries to become independent from Europe.
Yes. The whole idea was that only Russian Soviet Empire could hold these people together. Without us, you would revert into barbarian tribal warfare. And
Stalin liked such experiments, like to take the whole, for example, Northern Caucasian population and to resettle them to the Far East or stuff like this.
Right now, war in Crimea is also influenced by
Crimea, the whole Ukraine.
Yes, whole Ukraine. Like Stalin literally grabbed and took all the Crimean Tatars and resettled them into the heartland of Central Asia.
And for example, creation of Transnistria region in the Moldova, they cut off the big land, they settled Russians there, and the rest is history.
Yes, unfortunately, a lot of conflicts that are raging on in Eastern Europe, all of them in Ukraine. Holodomor created a lot of destruction of the state, and currently Russian-speaking
in the Central Asia, also in Kazakhstan, for example.
Yes, a lot of these conflicts, unfortunately, come from the man born in our nation, and it's his unfortunate part of our history, and we have to grapple with it and kind of
to carry
weight and somehow fix. And one of the mythical goals of my channel is to somehow wash off that Stalinist historical vision and create a new modern mythological. We still talk about history in mythological sense, but I wish to create more positive mythological identity of Georgians and other Eastern Europeans. As you can see in my other videos, I talk a lot about Eastern European knighthood and chivalry and those ideas in more positive sense, not as to divide each other, more to unite.
Yeah, of course, and I understand that, and history has always been a matter of the political ideology, and we all acknowledge that Eastern European knighthood had lot of flaws, like organizational flaws, human flaws, and stuff like this, but history was always a political science, and we all acknowledge that, and we do not hide it from you.
Yes, we know that even European knights were a bit mean, and samurais were a bit rough on the peasants.
And the samurais were a bit not that stereotypical cutting everything weapons as they seemed to be. One of the main samurai weapons was not katana but a bow, for example.
Spear, and a gun. Katana was more ritualistic and
ceremonial, like sword in the early medieval Western Europe, which was a ceremonial weapon, and the battles were fought with axes and maces mostly.
Yes. So there is popular history is more mythology than anything else, and based around modern politics. So best we can do is shape more positive vision of it, more which acknowledges the negative sides of the historical, but
of course
positive ideals in front.
Of course, I think this podcast and these videos do not claim to be like the 100% history research. It's a popular, how do you say, Ramble-Log.
Yes. This is Ramble-Log. We are rambling a lot, but the point is to get our passions across, that we love history, we love mythology, and we love modern pop culture and fantasy genres, where both met each other around LARP, small Georgian LARP community.
Live action role play.
Yes.
And the first in the South Caucasus, I want to say.
And the idea of, for example, I started making armors for this LARP community, and from this passion of fantasy and role playing, I became more curious, more and more interested in general history, and I think this is a positive force that could interest younger people and even older people who are more into fun side of pop culture, of fantasy and stuff like that, more curious about our own actual history and our own actual mythology, which is the basis of fantasy genre, mythology and history.
Yeah, and folklore.
Yes, I assume part of mythology.
As I remember, we're scheduled to talk about fantasy genre in a different video. So
in the future, next main video will be about more general outlook of modern fantasy. And tune in for that, for the next episode, where we go to battle with the modern fantasy genre. But more
let's not spoil.
Again, more in positive sense, to see what is good and what can be fixed. Okay, thank you for watching. Thanks again to our Misha Shavelashvili, our resident official historian. I'm more of a pop historian.
I'm more of a history enthusiast.
Yes.
I don't have a history diploma in my pocket, but I wish I did.
You read more books about than I do. I mostly just sit at home and make chainmail. So,
well, to each his own. I can never make a chainmail by myself, for example.
So, take care. Thanks for watching, and learn more history.
Yeah, history is not a crime.